Welcome to the TTT News Special. I'm DK Rostow. We are joined by CEO of the Tobago Festivals Committee, John Arnold. He is joining us to discuss the lay of the land with Tobago Heritage Festival for this year. Now, I'm starting out with the disclaimer, though, that the excellent footage that will be interspersing this conversation was executive produced by the Tobago Festivals Commission Limited, produced by the Emancipation Concert Committee, and has the list of talented stakeholders involved in the project. But it is no means giving a full representation of all on tap for the entire schedule of events that we are about to discuss. Mr. Arnold, how are you doing?
Hi, DK. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. No,
Good.
Some people say what a difference a day makes, but it feels like it's almost a year. So I'm wondering, though, what are some of the lessons that you would have learned from last year's experience that would have been brought to bear on this edition of the festival?
Well, I think one of the first things to say is that I think we've been able to look at this idea of collaboration as a big feature now. Secondly, the idea that the creative sector is not just the performing arts. There are a whole heap of other people who are involved in that. And I think we've been able now to give them the kind of respect and recognition. The graphic designers, the videographers, all those people who work really solidly in the background, but what we get at the output level is really just amazing product. And apart from that we can do things even though we are in a pandemic and even though we have restraints with measures, that we can still function in a proper way to get the message out.
And in terms of that functioning, though, was there some reluctance for partners this time around saying, okay, well, looking at tenders, looking at people wanting to involve themselves, saying, well, we're still in pandemic, it makes sense to go forward with this? Did you experience anything like that?
No, fortunately, not really, What we did was we followed the rule right to the hill. So we did not go above 5 persons. So if you look at the footage really good, you would see that we taped people really and truly within the constraints of what we had to do. And we followed the regulations right through. And that augured well, because I think we were able to now work with all of these measures, but still look at how we can still get the creativity going with what we are producing. And Sunday, I'm sure the show that we showed, Emancipation, Remembering Our Roots, was a good example of that. You won't see any large dance troupe with 10 and 15 people on stage. Neither would you see a drummer or psalm with 10 or 15 persons. All right, so we did follow the rules and we adhered strongly to those measures because we are still in a pandemic and we wanted to make sure. You remember our theme is remembering our roots with responsibility. So we don't want to break that at all. That was very key for us.
And so having the stage or the events is one thing, but even people going into it saying, okay, well, would I get as much bang for my buck as possible if I am to be a part of this initiative, this project, this time around? What was the experience like that?
If you mean from the stakeholders' perspective, no, it was a fair, everyone that we engaged, it was a fair process. And overall, I mean, the artists, the suppliers, all the stakeholders that were totally involved in any of the productions that we engaged, that we had, and we engaged persons, they were all enthused. They were very happy to be a part of this. I think it's good when you have an ecosystem, when everybody is on target, when everybody feels enthused that, hey, we've got to give the best to make sure that we can promote Tobago and the Tobago heritage. And also, again, the advantage of realizing that most persons are now on their mobile phones. All right, that's a big thing that has now happened. And then we also saw from our analytics how people supported Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the kind of growth we had last year, which was very significant. And all we are doing this year is really playing on that and piggybacking on that great success last year. Feedback so far is that this year has been, even better than last year. So there's been some growth.
And I like the fact that you say that we're basically learning by force. Well, this is how we have to deal with what we have at this point in time. But how happy were some of the players to see that the festival was on board and there was something to work forward, or something to work towards? So we can be a part of this. We can show the wedding from Mariah. We can show the string band. And even though we're looking at the numbers that fall within the safety guidelines, but saying, okay, well, there's something, it is on, and we can work towards it.
Yeah, I think the first thing is that I think we had good buy-in from the board of directors. And I think once you had that, then it was kind of easy for the team, the executive management team, to now contact those stakeholders and say, well, hey, listen, we've got to keep this heritage going. By the way, it's our 34th year, and 34 years is a significant time. And this year we are doing a lot of reflections, actually. We have some webinar series where we are talking to some of the early giants and warriors in the Tobago heritage who can give us a bit of the early history. And we're also looking at some young persons, how, their own take on how innovation plays a role now in terms of how we look at the heritage. So festivals on the whole, the three main things that we're really aiming for is, one, the awareness, visibility of the festival through the means, technology, and the internet and so on. The second one is cultural tourism, fact that we've got to build this as one of the key things about Tobago, almost aligned and theme. And lastly, that we've been able to utilize the technology to really come up with these hybrid perspectives and looking forward to what's going to happen in the future.
And you're starting to say some things, and I wanted, there's some questions that I had for the second half of the conversation, but I'm going to drop one now. No problem. Fling it in. Let us drag with Bo, Mr. Fiddler.
Right,
but in terms of the looking and sitting at the feet of great ones to better stand on their shoulders, making sure that things are archived, documented. I saw something about the Tobago Heritage Academy. Is that part of of what you're doing at this point in time?
Correct. Totally on target there, DK. So the Heritage Academy is a collection of both informative and instructional videos that will help people. You want to know how to do the maypole, the Tobago maypole? Yeah, we have that. Tobago tambourine, you want to know how was it made, how are the drums made, how to play it, what is the role of the tambourine, of the fiddle, what's the role of the violin? We have that. You want to do bongo, Tobago style? We have that also in the academy. So we have several of those that become not only entertainment information, but also becomes instructional also. And by having these in our archives and certainly curating them the way we are doing, we certainly ensure that the legacy and the preservation of Tobago's heritage is really ensured.
And I kid you not, Mr. Arnold, it would be less than a fortnight, I think, or just over a fortnight. I was asking someone if they had any footage about tambourine, because eventually I want to learn how to play the pandero. But in terms of saying, okay, well, there's some things that I'm sure I could be able to learn, especially, sometimes people think that everything that being played is with the hand that is on the outside of the drum as opposed to the one that inside.
Okay.
But we won't get into that now. We take a short break. We come back. We are speaking about...
actually, you must call me back for us to talk about the Tobago tambourine.
Yeah, you. Stay with us. We will return after this. Don't move. Welcome back. We are discussing 34 years of Tobago Heritage Festival with Mr. John Arnold, the CEO of the Tobago Festivals Committee Limited. Thank you very much for making the time. And just before we get into the schedule of events, Mr. Arnold, how has preparation been for groups with the state of emergency, the accompanying curfew, and some of the other things in mind?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we have been working virtually for a period of time, and as I said, adhering to all the rules. But in terms of the team, there's some of us who meet regularly at the office. But beyond that, everything else is really on the virtual platform. For example, the screening of the Queens took place on the virtual platform. I've just shown you the depth to which we are utilizing the virtual platform as much as we can. You would see a number of the activities, although they are what I would call the hybrid mix. So you would have, like, my interview, for example, it's just me being taped in a background at the Great House in Richmond, right? And so it's just me and the film crew. And you would notice that that would have been the approach right through, trying to make sure we adhere to those rules of trying to keep it in pockets of 5 and so on. So I think it worked really well, and the editors were able to bring together and put together these things to make it look, really well, and also utilize some curated footage from before. So we were able to take some of the secondhand footage and also make that part of what we did, for example, like the opening launch you saw. So you saw a wedding, but no, we didn't do a full wedding this year live. So I would say the preparations have been good, and they continue to be good in terms of the folk fiesta would be completely virtual. People will have to use their phones, tape themselves horizontally, and submit those. All those rules are available. Competitions in dance, folk songs, spoken word, speech band, all the oral traditions, etc. And if you go on our pages, Tobago Festivals, you would see all the rules and guidelines are there. And I think we look forward to that, because I think it exposes people to now show their creativity in many ways, not just the talent, but also how they capture themselves in the backyard, by the mango tree, right, by the sapodilla tree, by the front yard, with the dog running across. I mean, whatever imagery they give us, I think it augurs really, really well.
And you're whetting my appetite twofold: one with the fruit trees that you just called, and two with regard to some of those events that you are speaking to. So give me an idea of the schedule of events for this festival, please, Mr. Arnold.
Right. So the schedule runs from last Wednesday right up until the 11th of September. So persons will have to stay tuned, of course, to their Tobago Festival pages, right? And that would be across Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And of course, on the traditional media like your network and so on. We had the opening launch. We also had the Emancipation, Remembering Our Roots, all right? We have the Heritage Academy that has started. That is going to be an ongoing. The Folk Fiesta will start in roughly 2 weeks' time, and that will show different categories each week. We also have a webinar series, which would be looking at our roots, the roots of heritage. We have a panel with that. We have another panel looking at innovation and the heritage. And then we have young persons also discussing heritage and what it means to them. So we have those webinars that are going to be run over that period. And during that period, you would also have several of the engagements for the Queen, for the heritage personalities. And that will take place. And then we hope by the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of September, we will have all of those pretty much ready for the final presentation of the queens in their gowns and talent and so on. So even the question and answer segment, all those will be done on the virtual spaces. So it's exciting. It's going to be exciting.
And what I also find exciting, Mr. Arnold, is the fact that following this model means that there is a recollection that is just past, that is more than just collective memory in terms of the minds of those, because sometimes a little time passes and then it starts to get fuzzy, and one person remember, no, we used to do it so, and another person says, no man, we used to do it so, but saying, okay, we have this on record, on wax, as some people would like to say. But THA Secretary Ansel Dennis spoke about the importance of the Tobago Heritage Festivals. I want to get your perspective on it. Why is it so significant?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that, first of all, from the festival tourism perspective, festival tourism for Tobago is a big thing. I mean, that started way back 2003, maybe you can carry it back than that. in terms of being a serious thing. In 2003, there was a definitive policy kind of movement to get festival tourism and event tourism going. And you would recall in those days, you had several festivals. That's how the Tobago Jazz Experience was started. Remember, we also had a festival called Motadi Drumming. We had the Tobago Culinary. We had several, and then we also had a big splurge of sport tourism events. And all of those were geared to bring in tourists to the island and all the benefits spin off from that for tourism. So in terms of tourism, what I want to say is that at the festivals, we focus, yes, on the indigenous festivals, which Tobago Heritage fits on the homegrown. And then we also feature what we call the tourist tempters, those festivals that bring tourists to the island. And as an indigenous festival, it plays a very pivotal part, not only in strengthening communities and stakeholders having a chance to showcase and so on, but it's really a good earner and something that we have to look at. I love how you said it a while ago. We have to start preserving it now in the sense of not just relying on people's memory, but that we have these things captured in an artifact fashion, you know? So I would say that it has a big role as an indigenous festival. And now our role is how we market that. One of the things that came to my mind the other night when I looked at your television station with our production, and I said, you know, this film can be entered simply in any, like the Pan-African Film Festival, any festival as a short away, and really be of that quality.
And that's one of the things that I'm looking at because, and you spoke to it a little earlier in terms of like you have the archives, so you're able to take some of those archives and build things for stuff that is coming up in terms of like you didn't have the full wedding, you said, and the fact that we have these things to lure people away from places that they would go, because not everybody wants to go and to a space and have the same food that they were having. We wouldn't call any brand or franchise names right about now. But in my mind, if you could have people going from all over the place when borders are open, of course, to allow that, to reach to a space to fling tomato off of each other, Mr. Arnold. What more in terms of something that is so rich and you get so much more than tomato juice on yourself? There's something like this.
Totally agree with you, DK. Experiential tourism, as everybody knows, is one of those big areas that we have to now look at how we take advantage of that. Everybody's looking for a unique experience. I mean, even when I travel, that's what I want to see, something unique. And I think that in Tobago, we have a lot to offer. Any island that was fought after 33 times by over three different, three different nations must have something really valuable for people to be fighting over them so many times. So we have a rich history, we have a rich culture, a rich, good environment, and we were blessed with God's real estate. We just have to take advantage of all those gifts that we got. And I mean, while I'm at the festival, that's what we're going to be doing, trying to see how best we can explore, build, and develop festivals in Tobago to bring people to the island.
And with that, we end with the theme this year, Resilient Tobago, Remembering Her Roots with Responsibility. Thank you very much, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you very much,
we will be speaking again. And on behalf of the entire news team, we want to thank you for tuning in to the TTT News Special.